Is it sex or death?
Hello, kiddies. It's me, your old pal, the Crypt Keeper. And you're watching Rotten Roger DeMarco. 3 B's. Blood, boobs, and beasts. Roger, you beast, you're a bloody boob.
Hello, Internet fans. It's your old pal Rotten Roger DeMarco here from 3bproductionco.com. And this week, we're going to be talking about David Schmoller's 1989 film, Puppet Master. Okay, so here is your plot breakdown. Andre Toulon's puppet creations come to life when a group of psychics visit the Bodega Bay Inn for a funeral of one of their former colleagues. And the puppets pick them off one by one. Pretty simple, not a whole lot of crazy shit going on in this movie. Killer puppets, psychics, nudity, all the good stuff. But before we get into my overall thoughts of the film, first, let's take a look at
Ryan Rogers! Splatter facts.
We have 6 dead bodies. We have 3 titties. We have puppet POV. We have piano shenanigans. And we have psychic sex. Aw yeah. The methods of death include but are not limited to suicide, fire poker to the dome, drilled, sucked dry, yeah, throat slashed, and puppet gangbanged. Not that kind of gangbang. Get your mind out of the gutter. Okay, so on to my overall thoughts of this film. First of all, can't start this review without saying that the Puppet Master franchise is a video store staple. That's how these movies got discovered, through word of mouth back in the day when we were all younger, and the cover art was fantastic, and it just pulled you in. So it's very important to just get that out right off the bat and just say that this is one of those video store staples that everyone rented at some point. Guys, this is a super fun little Charles Band movie that employs all of the things that I really like. You know, you have some awesome puppet designs, you have some great stop motion animation that has aged very well. It is a little dated, yes, but man, there's some sort of charm with these puppets running through halls, and this movie does a good job of achieving the puppets moving from room to room without oversaturating the stop motion animation. They do a lot of puppet POV shots very low to the ground to minimize seeing these puppets moving around, which I feel like would take away just a little bit. Very similar to the original Child's Play, how a lot of Chucky's movements until the final act are POV shots. All the credit in the world goes to Charles Band and David Schmoller for the way that they visualized this film. Even if Charles Band and David Schmoller were or still are at ends about who officially created the Puppet Master franchise, I'm not picking a side. I'm just saying at least I get to watch the movies. So win-win for me. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. One interesting thing about this movie that I learned was that the Bodega Bay Inn, every time that they show the exterior shot of the Bodega Bay, was a miniature. And it's used with forced perspective to make that hotel look so massive. And I just found that out. That's how convincing that effect is. And you got to remember that we're talking about full moon pictures here. They're not really good about making things extremely convincing, but this is that heyday. This is very early. So they were putting all their eggs in this basket. And the early Puppet Master films really shine, so innovative and so well done. I really like the isolation of this film. I like the fact that this group of psychics comes for this funeral and they're miles away from everything, and it just feels very claustrophobic. I dig that whole aspect of the story, that there's really nowhere to run. You get a lot of cracks in the facades of some of these characters, to where when they're first introduced, you're like, oh, everybody is very nice. Everybody seems, genuinely upset that their friend has passed away. And then you start to learn some of this backstory stuff. I just like the way that the characters are set up. There's no purely good, purely evil people. There's a lot of gray area in this movie, and it makes it a little bit more interesting. For me, anyway, is that these characters aren't just cannon fodder. Another interesting thing is that each one of the psychics sort of has their own niche. One can touch objects and can tell you the entire history of that object, like who sat on the bed, who slept on the bed, whatever, who had sex on the bed. They know all of these weird things. There's another one who can see the future. Every psychic has their own special thing. So when you put them all together, they need to work together, stick together, and figure out what's going on. Unfortunately for them, there are killer puppets bumping them off. But it's awesome for us. One thing that has to be pointed out in this movie is that there is an obscene amount of moaning in this film. This film actually sort of kickstarted a game in my house. If one person is not watching the film but is in the other room and they're hearing the film, my wife and I play this game called Is It Sex or Is It Death? And it was this film that kickstarted it, because sometimes people are being murdered and they're moaning very, yeah. And you're like, how is that possible? Why are you sexily moaning while you're getting murdered by a puppet in an elevator? Spoiler alert. Very strange. I don't know whether it's an ADR thing or what it is, but when you go back and watch this movie, you cannot unhear it. Close your eyes. Even the music, because the music can kind of go either way. They never really have any stinger, scary music in this film. If you were blindfolded and got to listen to a 10-second clip, you would have a hard time figuring out if it was sex or death. Also, this film never did see a theatrical release because Charles Band was very ahead of his time. He was very smart and was paying attention to the trends of home video releasing. And he knew that if he had a great poster, good cover art, a nice tagline, that this movie would get the fuck rented out of it. And he was not wrong. The video store basically kept Full Moon Pictures afloat. Charles Band would put these movies out, reap the benefits of the rental, and then that would fund his next film. Sometimes he would even go so far as to have posters made before a film was made and show that poster, get the money to make the movie when they had no script, they had no concept. It's a very Roger Corman-esque thing. Roger Corman, Larry Cohen, Lloyd Kaufman, and Charles Band sort of were pioneers in this whole aspect of, we're gonna present you with an idea and hope to God you give us money. And I love that about them. They're just like, let's bet it all on the house. Very ballsy way of filmmaking. It's very admirable to me. I will say that this first film is an excellent origin story for the franchise. Although I do love this movie, but it is not my favorite in the franchise. I do fizzle out somewhere in the middle, somewhere around 5 or 6. I start to lose interest, but for my money, I think that Puppet Master 2 is the superior of all of the films. But this movie does a great job of setting the rules, building the lore, getting the franchise off the ground. And it's not until subsequent sequels where we get much better films before they completely taper off. I do sort of think that the lead character of Alex, he kind of looks like a cross between Jeff Fahey and Clint Howard. Sort of a weird look. The guy has kind of an odd-shaped melon. If you look like a cross between Jeff Fahey and Clint Howard, I don't really know what other job you can get other than Puppet Master. I don't. Is that bad? Is that terrible? That's probably terrible. I don't know. I'm sorry. Without getting too much into it, because there are people who still have not seen Puppet Master, I don't want to spoil any of the final act things, but it does get a hair muddy with the motivation and things like that. But I will leave that up to you, and you see it, and you let me know how you feel about the resolution of the film. But again, I don't really have anything super negative to say about this film. This movie paved the way for Full Moon Pictures and kickstarted a lot of careers, got a lot of great effects artists involved, things like that. So this is one of those movies that I go back and I just marvel at the fact that it was so well done for what they were working with. I truly love this movie, even if it isn't my favorite in the franchise, but I can't recommend it enough. If you're looking for a new franchise to get into and you, for some reason, have not pulled the trigger on watching the Puppet Master films, there's no better time than right now to check this movie out and then go down the rabbit hole clear to Puppet Master 75 or however many of these movies they made, because man, they kept going. But in my personal opinion, this movie is popcorn as fuck. It's almost the very definition of popcorn as fuck. This was made for the home video market. This was made for your Friday night. Made so you could go into the store, find great cover art, take it home, either be blown away by the creativity involved in this film, and have a good time with killer puppets, a little bit of nudity, an obscene amount of moaning, gore gags, all of the stuff that you want. This movie demands to be rediscovered, checked out, enjoyed. So if I have swayed you, click the link in the description and get a copy of Puppet Master today. But I suppose I should probably get going, because after all, there's a lot of movies out there and somebody's got to watch them. So why not me? Right?